So once again, welcome to the Alabama Aquarium at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab and to our Boardwalk Talks program. My name is Mendel Graver. I am one of the educators here at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. And today we are joined by Ms. Courtney Weatherby, who is the Coastal Outreach Manager for Alabama Audubon. And she is going to chat with us this morning about coastal birds of Dauphin Island. And with that, I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about some of the birds of Dauphin Island. There are a lot of them, so I'm sure she's not going to get to all of them, but there are a lot of interesting birds on the island.
Better? Ooh, that's loud. All right, guys. I'll say we could turn that down just a smidge, probably. I have a loud voice anyways. All right. So my name is Courtney Weatherby, and I am the Coastal Outreach Manager for Alabama Audubon. Who here, when you hear the word Audubon, what does that remind you guys of? Anybody? Well, when we say Audubon, a lot of people think of the highway that you can drive really, really fast on. Unfortunately, if I drive that fast, I get a speeding ticket. But I work with the other thing that Audubon is most commonly associated with, and that is birds. All right. Now, who here in the room today? Would consider themselves to be a bird watcher? Anybody? All right, we got a couple hands raised. All right, who in here happens to feed birds wherever they live? Anybody got bird feeders like in their backyards or something like that? Yeah, how many people watch the birds that are at their bird feeders? Most people, if you have bird feeders out there, you're gonna be watching those birds. And the cool thing about birds is that they're going to be everywhere around us. And once you kind of start tuning into that, you guys will start to notice more and more of them around you. Now, some of you may have noticed when you came onto the island that there is this cute little sign on the right-hand side that says America's Birdiest Small Town. And that is because Dauphin Island is a super, super special place when it comes to our birds. I'm going to talk today about a very unique group of birds that we have that actually nest on our beaches. But when it comes to Dauphin Island, we actually have a huge diversity of birds that are going to use Dauphin Island to feed migrational stops and for nesting and stuff like that. One of the reasons why a lot of people will flock, no pun intended, to Dauphin Island is for, I know, come on, you gotta give me a little bit of a laugh, that was it, right? One of the reasons why people flock to Dauphin Island is primarily going to be in the springtime, when we have a lot of our songbird migration. So we have these teeny tiny songbirds of a lot of different species that will fly from South America, from Central America, and they are flying north to where they are going to lay their nests. And as they as they fly across the Gulf of Mexico, one of the first places, those pieces of land that they come into contact with is going to be Dauphin Island or Fort Morgan. And they are exhausted, they do a non-stop flight over the Gulf of Mexico. And so when they see that land, they come down and they're like, okay, I have a place where I can recharge, I can eat a little bit, and I can take a rest before I continue my migration north. So a lot of the bulk of the excitement when it comes to birding on Dauphin Island starts off in the spring, but where the work that Alabama Audubon does down here, the bulk of it actually starts in the summer. Is anybody here familiar with the term shorebird? A little bit. If I say shorebird, where do you guys think those birds hang out? On the shore, right? If I say beach nesting bird, where do you guys think that those birds have their nests? On the beach, right? So down here on the coast, Alabama Audubon focuses on our beach nesting birds. We have 13 species of birds that lay their eggs on our beaches, and we have 6 species of birds that we focus on that are considered to be species of conservation concern. And when I say species of conservation concern, that means that their population numbers are so low and their reproductive success is so low that they require a little bit of assistance from humans in order that they don't go extinct, okay? So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of those birds. Now, when you guys think about a bird, where does a bird typically have its nest? It's going to be in a tree. And why would a bird want to create a nest in a tree? for safety, right? It's going to get it away from the majority of humans. It's going to get it away from a lot of predators, and you have up in a tree that provides you a little bit of safety. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass these around here in a second. These are not real, these are fake, but these are examples of about the size and the color of the eggs that our birds lay on the beach. They are, if you guys are at all familiar with like quail eggs, they're going to be around that size. And what do you guys notice about the color of these? They're sandy color, right? Which means that these nests are going to be camouflaged in with the beach habitat that the birds are laying in. I'm going to send one more there.
Let's also clarify that they just lay their eggs in depressions in the sand. They're not accumulating plant matter or anything.
Yes, that is a really, really good point. That when these birds create their nests, it's not like a sea turtle. A sea turtle will dig a hole and it will lay its eggs and it will cover them back up. Our beach nesting birds create what is called a scrape. So they will find a little area of the sand that they think looks good and they'll use their teeny tiny feet and they just will dig out like a little divot, like a little imprint. Basically, if you take your hands and you go like this, that's about the size of the imprint that they will make in the sand and they will lay their eggs right on top. Now, you guys will get a chance here to see those eggs, how small they are, how camouflaged they are. Our beach nesting bird season is going to be April through September, all right? Now, when does everybody typically want to go to the beach? April through September, right? Which presents us with one of our really big first hurdles that these birds face, is that the time that they are laying their eggs that are very, very camouflaged on the beach and their chicks are hatching is the time where everybody else wants to go on the beach. Now, who here's been to the beach on Dauphin Island so far? Okay, so as we pass those eggs around, I want you to think about if you were walking along on the beach, would you notice those eggs? Maybe the gray one? Odds are you probably would notice them if you were just walking and you weren't looking for them, okay? So one of the threats that these birds face, one of the reasons why they are a species of conservation concern is because occasionally they will get stepped on. If you were to, or going back to the human aspect of that, they can potentially get stepped on, but another common cause of concern for these birds is going to just be human interference in general. If you walk up to an adult bird that is sitting on a nest, what do you guys think is going to happen? It's going to fly off, right? In the bird world, we call that flushing. You flush the birds up off of their nest. Now, going back to those birds that are incubating in the trees for a second, when you think about a bird, an adult bird sitting on an egg, what is its purpose? What is it doing? It's going to keep that little egg warm so that it can hatch, right? Now, the reason why we don't want to scare adult birds off of our nests on the beach is actually kind of the opposite reason. If you think about walking onto the beach at 2 o'clock in the afternoon down here, and you step foot on that sand, how does it feel? It's going to be really, really hot, okay? So we already have these teeny tiny eggs that are laying on that sand, keeping them hot. Now I want you to imagine if that teeny tiny egg is exposed to the hot sand and the hot sun, what do you guys think might happen? It will pretty much overcook and that egg won't survive, right? So the adult birds that are sitting on our nests on the beach are actually providing critical shade for the chicks and for the eggs, which is why it's important not to flush those birds off of the nest, all right? So we have human disturbance, human interference. If you guys think about these little teeny tiny nests on the beach, what might be some other threats to these birds and these chicks and these eggs on the beach? Other birds, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the predators that these birds have, right? If you are a teeny tiny egg like you guys saw, or, this might be kind of hard to see, but I'm going to pass them around, okay? This picture right here is a picture of a baby snowy plover. This bird is days old, and this is one that actually hatched on our beach here this past summer here on Dauphin Island. It is about the size of 2 cotton balls put together. Now, if you are about this big and you are on a great big beach, just about anything that wants to eat you probably could. So we have bigger birds like crows that will come in. We also have bigger birds like our seagulls, bigger birds like our great blue herons. If they can find these little baby chicks, also owls, If they can find them, they will eat them. What are some other predators you think these birds might run into?
Crabs.
Crabs, absolutely. Who here has seen a ghost crab out on the beach? Those little teeny tiny boxy looking white crabs, those can be another predator of our eggs and our chicks. We have seen crab depredation before. They can find the eggs, they'll crack them open and eat what's inside. What else might be a predator of these baby birds? Yeah, absolutely. So dogs can be a big predator to our beach nesting birds, and it's often not even intentional when it comes to our dogs. I have a dog, she loves the beach, and unfortunately she loves to chase birds too. So we have two options when it comes to that. Either you can leave your dog at home, I guess three options. You can go to a beach where there's not our beach nesting birds, or you can keep that dog leashed. Because I want you to imagine like a really excited golden retriever, and it sees birds just laying on the beach. What is it gonna do? It's going to run those birds down, and it's not going to understand that there's eggs and stuff, so they can get stepped on, or if a big dog catches a baby bird, that could injure them as well. So we have dogs, crabs, bigger birds. What else? A squirrel. You know what? I bet you if a squirrel found a beach bird nest, it would definitely try and eat them. Squirrels will eat just about everything, right? Snakes, it isn't very common that snakes will be on our beaches here, but that could be a potential one. The other big one that we're missing is our other mammalian predators. So we have things like raccoons, foxes, coyotes, things like that. If they can find a nesting area, they will also depredate those eggs and those chicks, okay? So we have predators, we have humans, and kind of one of the last biggest threats that we have to our birds is going to be our storms, right? If you guys have been here throughout the week, we've had kind of unfortunate weather. We've had some storms rolling through, but I want you to imagine those great big waves that are coming and crashing onto the beach. Do you think a little teeny tiny nest can withstand a big wave coming up for those high tides? If we get that happening, it's actually going to pull those eggs and those chicks right into the water, okay? So those are some of like the biggest threats that our beach nesting birds are facing. Ideally, I would be able to take you guys out onto the beach and kind of guide you along in a scavenger hunt to show you what some of these nests might look like. But the next best thing that I can do for you is I have printed off some pictures here that are actual pictures of nests that have been found here on Dauphin Island. And I'm going to spread these around here, and I want you guys to just take a couple minutes and see if you guys can find the nests inside these pictures. Alright, so take a couple, 30 seconds or so, pass them around, look at them, and then I will point out the nests here in a few minutes.
So I can share with you that I have been out in these rookeries as part of like ornithology classes, and even if you know what you're looking for, and you know that you're looking for these nests, they are very difficult to see.
It definitely is like the ultimate game of I Spy, except the stakes are very, very high. I will say that. While we are passing those pictures around for those of you that are waiting, I want you to just kind of use your imagination. If you were out on the beach here at Dauphin Island and you were looking for an egg about this size, how would you guys go about finding it? Like, where would you even start? Right, so you're going to spend a lot of time looking down at the ground to make sure you don't find it. But if I took this egg right here and I went and hid it on the beach, do you guys think you could find it, even if you were staring at the ground?
I mean, it would take me a while to read.
It'd take you a while, but maybe I like that confidence. What do you guys think might be some other context clues of how we could find a nest on the beach?
Look for the birds.
Look for the birds, and you can look for like the little imprints in the sand. So in some of those pictures, if you guys look really, really closely, you can actually see bird tracks in the sand. And bird tracks in the sand are one of the main ways that we help to look for to find those nests. We can look for the adult birds. And something interesting that I learned when I started this job is that a bird that has a nest on the ground is going to act very differently from a bird that does not have a nest on the ground. If we see a bird like a little snowy plover, which we have these guys nesting on the island, if we see a bird and he doesn't have a nest around, he's going to act pretty chill. He's going to be foraging for food on the beach, just kind of like hanging out, loafing. Fun fact is the bird term for chilling. So if I say a bird is loafing, it's just kind of hanging out, resting on the beach. And that's how a bird's going to act if there's not a nest around. When there is a nest on the ground, though, these birds, they're going to kind of be giving you the side eye. They're going to like walk a little bit differently, and they're going to chirp at you. You're going to hear them calling, and that's their way of kind of being like, hey, why don't you guys go somewhere else, okay? So the first thing we do is we look for our adult birds. The second thing we do is we start to look for big groups of tracks, and then the third thing that we do is really focus in and look for those scrapes and looking for those eggs, all right? Give you guys a few more seconds to check out those pictures.
Do you want them to point them out?
Or do you have a copy again? I can keep talking.
You've got some too.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be kind of difficult, but if you guys can call back to seeing these pictures. So this one right here is like the expert level picture that I like to show people because this one is really, really difficult to find. But the eggs in this picture are actually located right here, okay? A lot of people think it looks like a rock or something like that. This is a snowy plover nest from down on the west end of Dauphin Island. This one right here actually has 3 different nests in it, okay? This comes from another nesting site here on Dauphin Island. It's called the Grabline Bay Restoration Project. And let's see if I can see this picture here. We have one nest that is right here. We have another nest that is right here. And we have a third nest that is right up there. Was anybody able to find all 3 of those? Or shot? So I want to actually pause because I left out a kind of interesting bit of information about our birds. So I said that there was only one singular nest in this picture and that there were 3 nests in this picture, okay? So some of our birds that we have nesting on the beach down here are going to be what we call solitary nesters. Can somebody tell me what that word solitary means? They don't want to be by other birds, okay? So birds like our snowy plover are going to be solitary nesters, which means they want to nest by themselves and they want their neighbors to be a good distance away. Whereas a bird like our least terns, this little guy right here, a least tern is a colonial nester. What's that word colonial mean? They want to be with a group of birds, okay? So our least terns here on Dauphin Island are nesting in a couple different locations. But at one of our active nesting sites right now, we have about 80 nests that are sitting all together, and it's probably on a space that is just about the size of this room, okay? So they will pack in really, really tight and close to each other. And why do you guys think that birds might want to do that? Extra protection, right? Exactly. And then these right here came from different nesting sites within the state of Alabama. This one, we have our nest right here. This one's interesting because it's like right at ground level, you can see it. And then this nest picture on the bottom came from Fort Morgan, and the nest is located right there. Was anybody able to find all of them? Some of you guys? Nice job. All right, so we've gone through the lifestyle a little bit of these beach nesting birds. I kind of introduced you to some of the species. I'm going to go more in depth to that here in a second. But I want to make sure that we cover today how you guys can help our beach nesting birds, all right? And let's go through the room here. How do you guys think you can help these beach nesting birds? What do you guys think? Be aware, right? Just knowing that these birds exist is going to be a huge first step. Now, when we go and we find these nests, we don't just find the nest on our beach and say, oh, cool, and walk away from it, right? We want to do something to make people aware. So while you are out on the beach here at Dauphin Island, or actually if you're anywhere else on the coast in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, all throughout the Gulf Coast, we're going to have these birds nesting on our beaches. And if you see any signs like this, that means that there is active bird nesting going on in that area. And if you see a sign like this, do you think you should walk past it? No, right? We want to make sure that we don't walk past it into those nesting areas because we don't want to accidentally step on those nests, okay? So that is step number one, is being aware and making sure that we're following the signs and the rules of that. How else do you guys think you can help these birds? Tell your friends about them, right? Here at the end, I brought some fun little swag stuff that you guys can take with you. So go out, teach your friends about the birds. We are here to make bird nerds all across the U.S., okay? So go out and tell your friends. What do you guys think about the trash on the beach? Clean it up, right? Really, that's going to help every single animal that calls our beach ecosystems home. It's going to help us because it keeps our beaches looking very pristine and somewhere we want to go and relax. And especially when we're talking about trash, guys, it can be really difficult to walk on the beach sometimes and pick up every single piece of trash that you see. You might not make it very far just because there's a lot that washes up out of the Gulf and from other places as well. But there are a few things that when I'm walking on the beach, I will never not pick up. The first one is going to be fishing line, okay? Fishing line is one of the biggest threats to any of our coastal birds. Our pelicans, our great blue herons, these beach nesting birds that we have, it's super, super easy for birds and other wildlife to get entangled in it. Just in the past month, while my crew and I have been out surveying, we have found 3 different pelicans that have been tangled in their wing or in their leg, and then the rest of that fishing line has been tangled to like grass or like a piece of driftwood or something like that. Thankfully, they were still alive when we came across them. Didn't have any fishing hooks in them. We were able to cut the line, clean them up, and set them free. But for those 3 birds that we found and we were able to save, there are 10 and 20 more that we get to them too late, okay? So fishing line is definitely one of the biggest threats to our coastal birds. Another thing that I never pass up when I'm on the beach is going to be balloons, okay? If you see balloons or balloon line on the beach, pick it up because that's going to make a big difference for our beach wildlife, okay? Pick up all trash if you can, but those ones especially. So, picking up trash, being aware of the signs. How else do you guys think you can help these birds? Just leave them alone, right? We talked about those adult birds needing to shade the eggs and the chicks. We don't want to flush the birds off of the nest. And then one of the last ways that I will talk about today with you guys that not a lot of people think about is that if you go to the beach and you decide you're going to dig the biggest, deepest hole you can in the sand, that's awesome. Go for it. I'm on board. I encourage it. Just make sure that you fill it in when you go. Because if you guys think of an itty-bitty sea turtle or an itty-bitty bird like that little snowy plover, if it wanders into that hole, do you guys think it can get out by itself? No, right? And that hole could get filled in with the animal inside of it. So we want to make sure that we fill that back in to help protect those animals. Also, it's going to make sure that no humans fall in that hole and get injured either. All right, so that is kind of all that I have about our beach nesting birds. It looks like the weather is still not great outside. You're gonna have the opportunity to grab some binoculars, go outside and look for some birds, which if anybody wants to do that at the end, I would be happy to step outside in the rain. I'm all for birding in the rain. But I'm gonna introduce you to some other common birds of Dauphin Island that I bet while you are here on your stay that you guys are going to see, okay? Again, unfortunately, I don't have the real birds, so we're going to have to work with some pictures, okay? Before I get to the pictures though, can anybody, there's a camera right here, can anybody take a guess as to what bird this skull might belong to? Say that. A pelican, right? This skull right here belongs to a brown pelican. It's missing the lower part of its jaw that has that big scooping part to it, kind of like if you've seen Finding Nemo. That's like the part that they hang out in while he takes them for a ride. So this right here belongs to a brown pelican, okay? Do not worry, this is not a real skull. This skull has actually been 3D printed, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pass this around. Try not to drop it if you do, it's not a big deal, but I want you guys all to be able to get a nice close look at that, okay? Has everybody here seen a brown pelican before? Yeah? For those of you that might not or maybe forget what they look like, this is what a brown pelican looks like. Okay? The next bird Give me a second. Forgot to get this guy out. All right. The next bird skull. Can anybody take a guess as to what bird this skull might belong to?
Pelican.
This one's not a pelican. This one's a little bit smaller. This one is not a seagull. You gotta think a little bit bigger, think a little bit taller. Think it likes to stalk you if you're fishing on the beach. Yeah, this one right here comes from a great blue heron, okay? A great blue heron looks a little bit like this, okay? They are a really tall bird, and if they even think that you might have some food for them, the odds are they're going to use those long legs and walk really slow and stalk you as you walk along the beach, okay? So this is our great blue heron.
They are notorious for hanging around anglers on the beach and grabbing fish as they reel them in, and then they sometimes swallow those hooked fish. So that, is an annoyance to the angler and it can be dangerous for the bird.
Absolutely. Another bird that will also do that are brown pelicans, right? Which brings me to another really good point, guys. I know when you go to the beach that it might seem kind of cool to feed the wildlife to make it come a little bit closer to you. Wildlife is really, really cool to see up close and personal, but we want to make sure that we are keeping wildlife wild, okay? No matter what kind of animal it is, we want to make sure that we're not feeding them. When it comes to birds, the three birds that are going to think that you're going to feed them the most is going to be a pelican, a great blue heron, and a seagull, right? So we don't want to feed the pelicans and the great blue herons because, like we mentioned earlier, these birds, if a fisherman or an angler or even a beachgoer feeds them once, they're going to continue to walk up to other people on the beach, and then they're going to start to eat, like if you're fishing with live shrimp or stuff like that, they may try and eat it and get hooked. We have actually worked with the Orange Beach Wildlife Center, and we have banded some of the pelicans that they have had come in. They rehabilitate them, we band them, and we release them. And we have had some of our banded pelicans show back up begging for food from other anglers, okay? So it is a very, very easily learned skill.
I have unfortunately seen two birds this year that had been tangled in fishing line, and then that hanging line got tangled in power lines, and they were hanging dead from the power lines. So again, fishing line is very problematic, and sometimes they're not just encountering it left out on the beach or somewhere, they're actually grabbing it from fishermen.
Yeah, that fishing line is really, really dangerous. And as an angler myself, my two favorite hobbies are fishing and bird watching. I get that sometimes your line will just come off, like you'll get a big fish and it will break your line. That happens, but if at all you can help it, like if you are breaking the line yourself, just stick it in your pocket and make sure it doesn't end up on our beaches or on our waters. This bird right here is the third bird of the common birds of Dauphin Island that I want to introduce you to. If you have been out on the beach or to a Walmart parking lot, I can guarantee you that you have probably seen this bird before. What kind of bird is this?
A seagull.
Seagull. Okay, I have a pop quiz question for you. How do you tell the difference between a seagull and a bagel? One of them flies over the sea and one of them flies over the bag, right? Bird jokes aren't very funny, but I tried. But in all seriousness, so when you talk to some birders, if you use the term seagull, they're going to tell you there's no such thing as a seagull. There's just gulls, right? Because this right here is a certain species of gull. It is called a laughing gull. They'll stand on top of the light poles at Walmart or out here on the pilings and on the beach, and they'll throw their head back and they go, ha 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 ha. And that's all the imitating of a gull I'm going to do through your guys' thing. But that's about the gist of their call, okay? It's going to be a laughing gull. Now, something interesting I want to point out is that if you see a laughing gull on the beach right now, it's probably going to look like this. But if you come to the beach or the Walmart parking lot in the winter, our laughing gulls are actually going to look a little bit more like this. That's because a lot of birds will actually switch out their plumage or their feathers between the breeding season and the non-breeding season, all right? It is typically the males that are going to change their color the most, and that's because the males like to be like, ooh, look at me, for all of the ladies, okay? So we have our breeding and our non-breeding plumage. These are our laughing gulls. Yes, that is a great observation. Their bill will actually change colors. Bill, beak, same thing. They will change colors. So when you head out to the beach, if you see a laughing gull, most people will overlook laughing gulls because they're just kind of a nuisance. They're going to eat your snacks when you go to the beach, or maybe like poop on you for your sunroof or something like that. But I want you to take a special look next time you see one at its bill, and if it does that laugh, if it throws its head back, try and look inside of its mouth, because the color red that is on this bird during this time of year is actually pretty spectacular. There's something special about each little bird if you look close enough. All right, so bird number 4 that I want to introduce you guys to. So everybody here's been to the beach here on Dauphin Island, right? Have you guys ever seen a bird that looks a little bit like this? Like a teeny tiny, just like random shorebird on the beach? So we have lots of different species of birds that are going to be about this size, and they're going to hang out on the beach. But this bird right here, the way you can tell it apart from other birds about this size is that it's going to be kind of like scared of the waves, okay? So if you're walking along the beach and there's a wave that comes in and you see this group of birds that look like this, and they all kind of do this motion and run away, and then they'll kind of run back towards the water when it goes back out. This bird is a sanderling, okay? And a sanderling is actually, I believe, the most populous shorebird that we have in the entire United States, okay? So this is a sanderling. Sanderlings are really cool because their plumages vary widely, okay? This is the breeding plumage or the summer plumage of our sanderling, and this is the non-breeding plumage. I know, sanderlings do not necessarily nest here on Dauphin Island. And because of that, we will have some birds that are in this plumage or this variation of their feathers, and then we will have some that look like this down here at the same time, okay? So there's going to be a pretty big variation in those birds. And then I want you to compare these two for you guys really quickly. So these are both shorebirds. And to the average eye, when you get out there, you might say, oh, they just all look alike, right? But if you give them an extra close look, you'll notice that there are some differences between them. When you get out onto the beach, and if you want to really get into identifying some of our shorebirds, some of the things that I advise you look at are going to be their bills or their beaks. So if you guys look, you're going to notice that there's a difference between these two. This little bird right here is our snowy plover. Like I said, this is one of our birds that nest here on Dauphin Island. This is that sanderling. The snowy plover's bill is going to be a lot shorter. And our snowy plovers you can find on just about every beach here on Dauphin Island. And the one thing that I would say to look for if you're looking for a snowy plover is they're going to have like a large black unibrow on them 9 times out of 10. Okay, that's going to be that kind of like free to call low identifying feature that they have. The last bird, we'll use these two actually. We're going to group them together as a group of birds, okay? Now, this bird is a bird that oftentimes gets mistaken for our seagulls, okay? But if you compare the two, you'll notice that they're slightly different in their body shape, in their bill size, their bill colors, their overall colors. These birds are our gulls, okay? And this bird right here with its sharper bill, that is a tern, okay? This is a royal tern, and I promise you guys have seen them if you've been on the beach. These guys do nest on our beaches here. They're a colonial nester. There's actually a nesting site here on Dauphin Island that has had over 800 royal tern nests on it this year, right? So those are our gulls and our terns. And then to end on one last tern, like I said, this little cutie right here, this is our least tern. It is called the least tern because it is the smallest of our tern species. It's going to have that yellow bill that's going to be its identifying feature. And I will tell you guys, if you get near a least tern colony, you don't really have to worry about somebody coming up and saying, hey, make sure that you leave them alone, because these guys are really good at taking care of themselves when it comes to defense mechanisms. Least terns will intentionally poop on you if you get too close to their nesting site, okay? So, and that's one of the only birds that, I'll tell you what, I have stains all over some of my shirts that I go and do surveys on these colonies because they will fly down and they will intentionally poop on it, okay? That's when you know that you are too close. So that is really all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for sitting and listening a little bit about our birds of Dauphin Island. Like I said, I have some fun swag stuff up here, so y'all come up before you leave. I have koozies and wristbands and stickers and good stuff like that. And if anybody wants to stay behind and learn a little bit more about binoculars and maybe step outside and see if you can see any birds, I'd be more than happy to do that too.
Thank you.